everybody, it's Egon here, and today I'm going to be joined by my great friend S2. Do you want to say
Hello.
hi?
Yep. Hi.
And today, since the ending of the 3DS is coming up, we decided we wanted to have a little discussion and talk about our fond memories and amazing games of this console that, at least for me, is one of my favorite things of all time. I don't know if it is for you.
Oh, yeah, no, it's a great console. I definitely enjoy the 3DS.
So this console came out back in 2011, and for me, I think I was in first or second grade, and I remember wanting this console, seeing it on like the kiosk displays in Target and Best Buy, and all I could do was wait until Christmas. I don't know when you ended up figuring out about this console and wanting it, so if you want to talk about that now.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think. Man, was it really that early that it came out? Wow.
Yeah, it came out in, I believe, March of 2011.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds right. So I didn't get it in its first year of launch. My first 3DS, both of my 3DSs that I ever had were 3DS XLs, and that came out in 2012, I think.
Yeah, I think it only came out a year after, which is kind of odd for a console revision, because I mean, a lot of people had issues with the 3DS shape, because I assume I was a kid at the time, so with my small hands, I didn't mind how cramped everything was, but I can assume that at least now holding a 3DS is a little bit uncomfortable, but I can kind of put up with it because just for the sake of nostalgia.
Yeah, totally. So for me, my I think I got so when the 3DS XL came out, I know I really wanted it. And I think it took me about a year to save up for it. So I got it probably around the end of when I was in elementary, in 2013, which I got it probably over the summer of that year, and me and my brother shared that one 3DS until...
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, until Christmas of that year, when we got the Year of the Luigi one that had just come out that year. So we got a second one.
Green Luigi one, or the
it's
silver and gold one?
Yeah, the silver and gold one that came with Mario Luigi Dream Team installed on it. Yeah, so that's how I ended up getting these consoles, which now that you say it, I guess I did get these when they came out relatively new, a year or two after the console dropped. But I don't know, I used this console a lot when I was in middle school, but I didn't think about how young I really was when I got it. Yeah.
I know at least one of my earliest memories of meeting you had brought your 3DS XL to class, or I had seen it or something, and I just thought that was really crazy because I hadn't. This was around when the Switch came out, so I just remember seeing that and I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, me and a friend would dig out our old DS, regular DS Pokemon games, and we would play Nuzlocke and whatever.
Oh, wow.
And so I remember I always had my 3DS on hand for that, because we had such a long bus ride in the morning that we'd get a solid hour of play every single morning. So yeah. I always had that thing on me.
So right now I want to talk about the launch just a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it came out in March, and on it, I remember not a lot of people getting it. I never saw it around school. I didn't even hear many people talking about it, and I think that could be because of how expensive it was. It launched at $250, I believe, and that's just insane for a handheld console at the time, because that was more expensive than the Wii was at the time, since the Wii came out back in 2006.
Yeah, I think so. I remember when the 3DS came out, seeing, I believe, was Pilot Wings one of the launch titles?
Yeah, Pilot Wings Resort was one of the launch titles.
Yeah.
And the cruddy system titles at the time could also be a reason for why not a lot of people were picking it up.
Yeah, that's the only like launch title that I can think of. I remember being pretty excited about it because I loved uh Wii Sports Resort, and
Yeah.
they had Woohoo Island in that Pilot Wings game. So I remember wanting that game, but I don't think I really remember much about the other ones. I know like I learned after the fact that Steel Diver was one of the launch titles, but
Yeah, and I got that last time we went to the
yeah, that's
game
right.
store. So
Yeah.
the Nintendo titles that released on launch were Pilot Wings, Steel Diver, and Nintendogs plus Cats.
Hmm.
I know at least I certainly wouldn't buy a console if those three titles were the only Nintendo
Yeah.
ones. I mean, because most of the time you expect a Mario or a Zelda, but
Right. Yeah, I know Nintendogs was popular for sure, but I never was introduced to the series, so I didn't care about it at the time.
but the third-party titles seemed to kind of carry the console for a little bit. I know Street Fighter 4 3D came out, The Sims 3, Super Monkey Ball 3D, which is the worst in the series. It's really bad.
Oh yeah.
So in the summer of 2011, this is when kind of the big titles were coming out, and this is when I know more people started to pick it up. Ocarina of Time 3D came out around this time.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I know at least for me that was my first Zelda game.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to talk about all the hours I put into it. I got the console, and then I had to wait I think 15 days from Christmas till my birthday, and then I got that and Sonic Generations for the 3DS. But my brother, who also had a 3DS, he got Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7. So a lot of good titles came out towards the end of the year, and I know more people started picking it up because I began to see them with my friends. But in terms of the games, there were still DS games coming out at this time, so you could still pick up. I think it was Pokemon Black and White that came out after the launch of the 3DS.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you ever played those personally.
Yeah, I definitely, I was gonna say, a lot of what I used my 3DS for was just playing the old DS games. Like, my 3DS library wasn't even all that huge.
It was just mostly DS games.
Yeah, I had some games, but I wasn't like, a lot of what I was using it for. Like, even if I go in my play logs, a lot of, like, my higher up ranked things are like regular DS games.
Yeah, I mean, other than Ocarina of Time, Mario 3D Land, Star Fox 64 3D, I mean, that was pretty much all you could play after you finished those games.
Yeah, right.
So you said you saved up and you bought your console. Is there any interesting story about getting it, or did you just go and get it?
Yeah, I like, it was a used console, but like obviously pretty much like never touched. Like, whoever bought it obviously brought it back very quickly.
Yeah.
And so it was in good condition, and it still is. That's always nice. I think
What color is it, if you don't mind me asking?
it's one of the ones that's like black with the blue outer shells.
What? Oh, the blue and black XL.
Yeah.
I just recently got all black XL, and it does fit pretty nice in your hands.
Oh yeah, they're really comfortable. Like, the one thing I wish is like the little bottom bar that's like your select, start, and home buttons. I feel like it doesn't feel that good, but since that's usually reserved for like menuing, I honestly do really appreciate how everything else feels on the console.
I got the standard 3DS. I got the black one. My brother got the blue one in Christmas of 2011. So since the 3DS was kind of my gift at the time, I didn't have any games. So as you know, the 3DS came pre-installed with AR games, Face Raiders, and Street Pass.
Oh yeah.
And I just remember spending a ton of time in Face Raiders. I don't think I was ever too good at it, and I didn't really understand the AR cards.
Yeah, I remember, I guess like the year the 3DS first came out, like 2011. Um, I remember a cousin of mine got the 3DS and like for Christmas that year, and that was like my first experience with the console was seeing Face Raiders. So I have a little bit of nostalgia for it as a program. I think it's definitely what interested me in the console.
I will say programs like those, even though they kind of seem like I guess a tech showcase on what the console can do. I really miss those kinds of things on Nintendo's newer consoles because
Oh
you
yeah.
get the Switch and it doesn't have anything on it, but you could get something like the Wii U or the 3DS and you can at least have a good time making Miis and playing small games, even if they are just kind of to show off the capabilities of the consoles.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of charm in those apps. I don't know if you want to like necessarily get into all of that yet, but there's like a lot of neat little things that the 3DS had that I do definitely wish the Switch had a bit of that like character.
I guess we can get into it now. I guess the first thing I want to talk about is Street Pass, because I know
Yeah.
there are a lot of people who love that and who are kind of hoping that Nintendo does something similar, although carrying a Switch around will be kind of cumbersome in comparison to 3DS.
Yeah, that is
But
true.
do you have any notable Street Pass experiences?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I brought my Switch to, or not my Switch, my 3DS to and from school for like a majority of middle and high school. So, I had a lot of coins, and so I'd always do like the puzzle thing and
Yeah.
the Find Me quest or whatever it was called, but like where you're the little RPG. But I remember like seeing a lot of people like that one there was that one meme that was like Lonk where it was like Link but he's got like a funny face.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember running into like a few people with the Lonk meme and as their me that would like come greet you at the gate, and it was always fun to like see what people had, or just like walking around and like you get a new person in your street pass was always interesting because it's like, oh, I just walked past somebody who's got their 3DS on them, it was a really fun feature. I like it.
I was never allowed to bring my 3DS to school, so my experiences in Street Pass kind of came at airports or car rides, or for some reason we were allowed to take them to restaurants, but not to school.
That's
So
understandable.
I never really had too many Mii's in my Mii Plaza, which led to me not being able to really do Find Me and only really getting puzzle pieces by walking around my neighborhood with my 3DS since we weren't really allowed to take it anywhere.
Yeah.
Even now, I carry my 3DS around in my pocket when I go to classes just to rack up the play coins, because I mean, there's no reason I shouldn't do it.
Yeah, I remember another tricky thing too. I feel like the Find Me was really hard because like yeah, by the time I was really carrying my 3DS around a lot of places, um there wasn't a lot of people like still bringing them
Yeah.
out for sure, and so like you said, it was hard to find people with Mii's, but also it was really tricky to like get the right magic types, because I remember it was like depending on what color the person had their Mii's shirt set as would like determine their magic color.
I completely forgot how that game worked.
Yeah,
You just reminded me of just a ton of just losing to enemies because
yeah,
I had like 3 people.
because
And
everybody, yeah, like that light blue color was like really unappealing in the Mii Maker. Like yellow, like not very many people choose yellow. So like you had like everybody I always had on there either had like red or like purple as their shirt, and like I could never get any of the other magic types.
My,
And
my
so
shirt colors
tricky.
still are purple and blue. So
Yeah, right. It's like purple, blue, and red were like usually the really common ones, and so it's sometimes hard to like get through levels of that just because you couldn't find the right magic type.
did you ever utilize the AR cards that came in your 3DS bundle?
I played around with them a bit when like I first got the console, but I don't really remember too much about like the games inside or anything.
Yeah,
To
I
be
know
honest,
there was the fishing thing. And fishing and archery. I think those were like the
yeah,
two things other than just being able to see character
the
models in
characters,
3D.
yeah. I was gonna say I remember messing around with it a little bit, but I don't think it was in depth enough with at least the ones that came with the console. I don't know if they ever sold like any outside that were a bit more, but yeah, it was a cool feature, but yeah, I think it was more like a tech show off thing,
Yeah,
really.
I always remember thinking that my AR kind of system was broken, but looking back, it was just because of the dim light and not having the right angle because I was 7 and I didn't understand it. So I always thought it was just a waste of space on my 3DS, and it was really unappealing.
Yeah, yeah. It I don't know. It's an interesting feature, but it's not really like I could go with or without it, I suppose.
I feel the same about Face Raiders because
Hmm.
it's a nice enough game, but the fact that you have to spin around and
Yeah.
get the get the faces, it's kind of you're kind of out of the way. You can't just like sit down and do it on a car ride because how are you gonna get behind?
Yeah, that's true. I enjoyed Face Raiders enough. I played it like a solid amount, but yeah, it would have been nice if there was a way to turn off gyro controls. I get that was like the whole thing
Yeah.
was what they were showing off.
So
But
you said earlier that you got the 3DS XL in 2012. Did you get any of the notable games that year, or did you kind of just stick
yeah,
to?
so I guess I got it around the end of the year, um, when Pokemon X and Y came out, because I got those games I think as the
You said
titles
you
I
got it in
got
2013. Sorry.
20 yeah 2013.
Yeah, that's when it came out.
Yeah, and that's when I think those games came out, and because I know that was like the big pusher for me to
Yeah, those
like
came
get a
out in
3DS.
November, I believe, as all Pokemon games do.
Yeah, so I grew up with Pokemon, and I had the Wii and the DS, and so like when they made Pokemon Battle Revolution for the Wii, to get off on a tangent a little bit here, it was like the coolest thing ever because you could use your Pokemon and like battle them in this 3D thing instead of
Yes.
just on the little 2D thing. So when they announced X and Y and they had like the 3D graphics in the game, it was like mind blowing because you didn't need this third game anymore to do it, and it looks so neat.
We can certainly
Um,
talk more about X and Y later when we get into
yeah,
play logs, because I know it's way up there for me.
yeah,
But talking about some of the notable releases of 2012, Kid Icarus Uprising came out in the first quarter of 2012. Did you ever end up playing that game, or
no,
was that?
unfortunately I still haven't gotten around to it.
I got it. I think I got it that summer. I got the big box version, but didn't end up taking care of any of the big box inclusions. So now that thing's going for about $100, and I feel like I missed a huge opportunity. But that was quite possibly one of if not my favorite game on the 3DS.
Mm,
I can go into it later when we talk about play logs, but I guess I can talk more about some 2012 games. Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance came out. Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater 3D came out, which is actually my most recently completed 3DS game.
oh wow.
Mario Tennis Open, New Super Mario Bros. 2. I don't know if you had that one, but
Yeah, I
it
had that
came
one.
bundled with a lot of consoles.
I actually bought that one like because it didn't come bundled, but I did
Yeah.
I did end up getting it. Yeah.
And then Paper Mario Sticker Star kind of ended off the year not really in the highest.
Yeah.
I received that for Christmas, and I felt like I was doing something wrong, not being able to get through it.
Yeah, I received that as a birthday present with the guide too, actually. So I had like the strategy guide to help me beat the game.
And then in 2013, there were a lot of good games that came out then. I remember this is when Fire Emblem Awakening came out, Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D, Mario and Luigi Dream Team, like you said with your
Yep.
other console, and then Pokemon X and Y to end off the year as well, Sonic Lost World.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I wish I had picked up like the base model 3DS.
Why do you say that?
Just because it was smaller, I feel like it would have
Yeah.
been nicer to carry around, and I would just be interested to like play with it and see how I enjoy it. And same with the 2DS too. I'd be interested just to try it out, and the new 3DS especially is something I wish I had gotten.
Speaking of the 2DS, that came out in October of 2013, and I remember my cousin had this because his parents were worried about sort of the 3D feature of the 3DS. So
Mm.
I know it was certainly a lot cheaper. I remember seeing it towards the end of its lifetime being on sale for $80 in a bundle
Oh
with
yeah.
Mario Kart 7, I think it was. But this is not my 3DS console of choice. I mean, I'd rather have something that can fold
Yeah,
and is actually a little bit more comfortable to hold.
that's my thoughts exactly. Because I probably would have bought a 2DS if it was able to fold. Because I very seldom use the 3D.
Yeah, I don't ever really remember using the 3D. Even now, I don't, because sometimes it's just a little too strong.
Yeah, right. It's cool, like it's novel, but I don't think it's very comfortable to play most games with.
The last revision to come out was the new 3DS and the new 3DS XL, and I know you just mentioned that you kind of wished you could have one of those, but I remember these released, they had the AR functionality, they had facial tracking for 3D, making it so that you don't have to kind of lock the system in one specific place only to view the 3D effect. And I think this released around the time of Super Smash Bros. Because the amiibo functionality was something that was very important, at least during the launch.
But yeah, yeah,
I guess I can just sort of end this section off by saying that the 2DS XL, or the new 2DS XL, also came out, and that console is massive. This is around the time when mobile phone gaming started getting really popular, so they kind of just made the top screen the size of a phone, and they just kind of rolled with it.
oh yeah, yeah.
So
I
if you want to talk more about our play logs, we can certainly do that now.
yeah, sure. So, I
I
think
guess
in
we can go
the
through like top 10 or top 15, just kind of whatever really comes to mind that you put a lot of hours into.
yeah, I was definitely so when I first got the console, there wasn't a ton on the like a ton of games at least that I was really interested on. But I know in that first year, I definitely got the Pokemon games, Pokemon X, and my brother got Pokemon Y, and we played those a lot. And like I was saying earlier, those are just really cool. You know, those were really cool at the time, especially because they had like 3D in the fights, and the character customization I think was really neat, because before you just you had to just like whatever your character looked like, you
Yeah,
know.
it's those kind of things that kind of make me think really fondly of Pokemon X and Y, and kind of
Yeah,
have them up there in terms of my Pokemon game rankings. I didn't really take advantage of the character customization as much as I should have, but I
mm,
just remember thinking the game was so cool, and how all the cities and routes and towns were kind of really, it felt like you were in France, which is,
yeah,
I assume, what they were going for. And then the region was split into 3 different sections to kind of make them feel unique as well.
yeah,
But a pretty common complaint among the Pokemon community is that a Pokemon Z should have definitely come out to go more into depth about Zygarde, but they kind of explored its story in Sun and Moon. Do you have any like notable stories playing that game?
Yeah, I guess just to talk a little bit more about like the character customization. Like I feel like that, like, I remember specifically trying to get into that one boutique in the one big town that you have to, like, I don't know exactly what you have to do for it, but it has some really steep requirement, and I remember I never got into that, but I remember trying to like grind out for that.
I think you had to
And
get all three like custom outfits, or they
yeah,
were like a million
something.
$Poké each, or something crazy like that, and then you were
Yeah.
granted access in.
Yeah, it was something like that. And I remember there was those little like trainer videos that you can make that you could like swap with your friends, and you could like feature like your character and one of your
That's
Pokemon
right.
and like all these catchphrases. And I remember trying to make like the goofiest ones possible, like where, you know, just like it would say like the most random nonsense and then show like my character doing like a crazy dance or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember messing a lot with that because I found them so hilarious, and that was a feature that I really fondly remember. I wish they would bring those back just because they're special to me.
Yeah, they're a little bit more expressive than the trainer cards that we have now.
Yeah, and I remember the features on the bottom of the screen, the like,
The online functionality.
yeah, there was online, but then there was also the Pokeami and
Yeah, that's right.
the training thing. When X and Y came out, I didn't really understand the Pokeami, and I was a little like too young to have gotten into depth on how like friendship values and stuff work in Pokemon.
All I knew is that I had to pet Eevee a bunch just to get Sylveon, which was one of my like big goals for the game, I suppose, since Fairy type was also introduced then.
Yeah, but I do remember using the like training one a lot. Because I enjoyed the little like mini games of it, and I didn't really
The
understand.
shooting thing.
Yeah, and I didn't 100% understand what was going on, but I saw that like my Pokemon stats were increasing, so I inadvertently trained up my Butterfree to have like a crazy high speed stat. And so I do remember that I had like this like crazy trained up Butterfree that I had just been messing with that little mini game.
Yeah. Speaking more about Pokemon, my number one game is Pokemon Black 2, which actually came out around the launch of the 3DS XL. And I put, let's see, 272 hours into that game.
Wow.
I don't know if you've ever played it, but I think a lot of my time was spent using Wonder Trade just to kind of catch everything. But this was when kind of the hacked Pokemon craze was, I guess, popular. So all I would receive are hacked shinies of mythical Pokemon, and then I would use them in online battles, and I would win because all I would do is have their movesets be only attacking moves, since I didn't understand status conditions.
I didn't really dabble with the online that much until Pokemon Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby came out, but I do remember pretty vividly one time in Pokemon X, it was like a snow day and school was out, and so me and a friend of mine like called each other up and were like, let's battle. And so I do remember like having an online battle with a friend, you know, every now and then, and like that one time specifically is like a very vivid memory for me. But
my sort of online experiences end with just me playing against my brother, since this was around the time that a lot of my friends were getting like Xboxes and PlayStation.
right, yeah.
So I was kind of left in the dust with a 3DS, and that everybody thought was really lame. And this is also when sort of PC gaming began to rise, which I know for me is kind of the reason why I stopped playing my 3DS back in, I want to say 2015 or 2016.
Yeah, I definitely didn't use the online features as much as I wish I had now, but there was some fun fun to be had with the online.
My number 2 game in my play log, we've already talked about X and Y, and that's at number 3 for me, but my number 2 is actually Ocarina of Time 3D. And I remember when this came out, it was crazy because you were playing one of the best games of all time in the palm of your hands with better graphics, kind of the gyro, better controls, at least having all your inventory options on the bottom screen. Did you ever end up playing that?
Yeah, I actually owned that game. It was fun, but I think I just didn't quite have the patience to ever finish the game, but I enjoyed it a lot.
I can kind of relate to that. I got held up at multiple points. I got stuck in the forest temple because that was the dungeon where the wall master was introduced, and I was scared of that. So I didn't progress until I realized you could just go through the room really quickly. And then I got stuck at the spirit temple, and I had to look up a guide about how to beat it. But thankfully, I could do that on the 3DS with the internet browser, which is still a crazy feature of that console. Even though it was slow and it didn't work all the time, just having the option to do that, and you could suspend your game for the time while you looked online for answers on how to beat a specific portion of your game, that's just crazy. Not even the Switch has like a proper online browser.
Yeah, really. It was a tricky game for sure. I think both versions of Ocarina of Time are kind of difficult, and so it's cool though. It was a neat remaster for sure, and I'm glad that I had it because I was really into Zelda at the time.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to go back to the original based off of how just all the quality of life improvements on the 3D version. I remember still trying to pull off some of the glitches that were present in the original, which the developers actually wanted to keep in since they viewed them as kind of like
Features.
A scavenger hunt rather than anything game breaking.
I see. That's cool. One of the other games I had in that launch year was Animal Crossing New Leaf.
Oh yeah, that was sort of when I got into Animal Crossing.
Yeah, I remember playing that a lot with friends. To get into the Animal Crossing series, I guess I've played all of them except for the original one on GameCube. I grew up with like the one on the Wii and the one on DS too. So like I was very into Animal Crossing at this point, but I don't think they had really the like customizability that this Switch one has.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it was like not really based on this whole like building your town thing as much, I think, or at least it wasn't to me. A lot of it was just based on like getting more money so that I could do more stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember like I'd play with friends like a ton, like just a ton, and I had my island, the like not like the one you live on, but like the one you can go travel to by boat with Cap'n, and like there's that little tropical island. I had mine set up to like farm beetles, and I remember me and my friends would just like hang out, and we'd like get on a call and go to one of our islands and just farm beetles and make tons of bells. And it was so much fun. Like even though it should be a really mundane task of just like catching bugs, I really seriously like vividly look back on that. And that is the island as a whole, I think, is something I wish the new Animal Crossing had. Is I feel like there's not a whole lot to do in the multiplayer in the new Animal Crossing.
There's no like games or really sort of like all you can really do is tour each other's islands.
Exactly.
Which, it's nice. It doesn't feel like a multiplayer game.
Exactly, yeah. And I feel like the island, like with the little mini games you could do together, I feel like it just added a little bit more to that experience.
I never understood kind of like the goal of Animal Crossing. I would just kind of get on every day and just mess around, for lack of a better term. I don't think I was ever too good at it, but going back to play now, I certainly enjoy it a lot more than New Horizons, because although New Horizons has like a ton of more customization and when it comes to patterns and stuff like that, the option to use QR codes with the camera on the
Uh,
3DS.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think it simply works better as a handheld because it's just something you can pick up every day for like 30 minutes or something, do some chores, make sure everything's in check, and get off.
Yeah, I don't know. I think honestly, as much as like people dislike New Horizons and say that New Leaf is a better game, I do think I like New Horizons more, but I definitely wish it had a lot of the features that New Leaf has. I feel like New
Yeah.
Leaf was really well thought out, and it just isn't my style of game necessarily, but it's a good game. It's a seriously fun game.
Another one of the games I have very highly on my play log, like I mentioned earlier, is Kid Icarus Uprising. And this game has a lot of personality you don't see from a lot of Nintendo titles anymore.
Yes.
It's voice acted wonderfully. You can see that even in Smash Bros. Now with voice cameos from a lot of the characters. It was a really good return to Kid Icarus that the series drastically needed, and that a lot of people end up wanting on Switch.
I need to get around to playing it for sure.
At least for me, this will be one of the games that I could come back to once a year and just keep playing based on how, I guess, investing it is.
Yeah, definitely.
My sixth game was actually it's a pretty notable title. I think it's something that can't really be replicated on Switch. It's Tomodachi Life.
Oh yeah.
Did you play that?
Unfortunately, that's another one I didn't own. I always wanted to buy it, and I never found the chance to get a copy of it.
That's fair. I just thought the act of customizing like a bunch of crazy Miis and having them sing songs and interact with each other, I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah.
Even I still play it today, or just with new Miis, because you can import characters like Walter White and Muhammad Ali and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do want to say in my thoughts on Tomodachi Life, I think it's something I'd enjoy more than something like The Sims.
Yeah, it's also something I'd enjoy a little bit more than Utopia.
Yeah, I just feel like in terms of like a game of that style where it's kind of like a removed life simulator where you're just like watching regular day events kind of play out, I guess. I feel like Tomodachi Life is kind of like the game I would want out of that style the most.
Well, who knows? Maybe Nintendo could announce a second one this year.
That would be nice.
I would certainly appreciate it, and I would get it.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
It would certainly bring a lot of changes on how you type up songs for your Miis to perform. But
yeah.
I'm sure they could find a way around it.
Yeah.
Another big... I don't have as many hours on this, but I just remember playing it so much. Another big title is Super Mario 3D Land.
Unfortunately, I don't know that one.
This will always be one of my favorite Mario games, more so than Odyssey and Sunshine, because just the bite-sized levels that you can pick up and play anytime, as well as the second world and unlocking Luigi. There was just so much you could do in this game for it being something that's kind of self-contained and really small in nature when you think about it.
Yeah, it's always been something I've been pretty impressed by. Like it's a really fun-looking game from somebody who'd never played it. But yeah, by the time it came out, I think I guess it probably came out before, but I ended up getting a Wii U with Mario 3D World, so I just never went back to play Mario 3D Land, unfortunately.
I know at least the sort of formula for gameplay inspired Mario 3D World, because they're practically the same in nature, just with a upscale in image and larger levels by a little bit, and more characters you could play as.
Yeah.
I will say that's kind of the bad thing about 3D Land, is that you can't do multiplayer.
Yeah, yeah. I liked 3D World, so if 3D Land is more of the same, then it's a good game in my eyes.
My ninth most played title is Mario Kart 7.
Oh yeah, I played a
For
lot of
all
that.
things considered, this is a really good Mario Kart game. I believe it was the highest selling Switch, or sorry, not Switch, the highest selling 3DS game, more so than Pokemon X and Y.
Wow.
And I mean, it's so notable of a game. Nintendo bundled it with a ton of their console releases.
Yeah.
Did you play that one?
Yeah, I played a lot of Mario Kart 7. I think number one, first of all, like everybody had the goal to get like the full gold cart because
Yeah.
it was like the best cart in the game by a mile, or at least that's what that's what we all thought. I don't know if it's true or not, but yeah. So I remember like it was huge when you'd like see when you'd be playing against somebody and they had the gold cart and you'd just be like but it was cool because I'm pretty sure this is the one that introduced like real cart customization.
It is.
Yeah, and that's an awesome feature for Mario Kart. I really enjoyed that.
This was the first one I really sort of did online with because I didn't understand online play with the Wii, but I did a ton of online racing in Mario Kart 7. So I just think it's notable for that alone, and the track selection is amazing looking back.
Oh yeah,
It had a lot of really good stuff. It had some of the really good stuff from Wii that ends up returning in Mario Kart 8. But
yeah,
you could play this game for 100 hours like I did and not get bored of it at all.
yeah. Though I gotta say, it's funny that you mentioned that it's the best-selling one for the console because my experience was that I knew a lot of people who didn't have this game.
Wow, really?
But they had Mario Kart DS for like just the regular DS,
Yeah.
and I never had that one, so it was always kind of like, I'd either connect to my friends who had Mario Kart DS and play as just like I think they gave like Shy Guy to guest players, or like
They did.
or they'd connect to mine, but it was always like it was always a trouble because like we didn't all have one version of Mario Kart. But yeah, this one I played a lot of the online too. I think it was where I kind of started with online in Mario Kart.
Another really, I guess, system-defining title is A Link Between Worlds.
That one I didn't
Once
play.
again, didn't play.
Yeah, like I said earlier, I didn't pick up a ton of 3DS titles. A lot of what I was playing on there was like Pokemon or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But if I could just talk about this for a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
I didn't play it as much as Ocarina of Time 3D because I did enjoy sort of the 3D world more so than 2D. This was a really solid game. I even have the Link Between Worlds Special Edition 3DS XL. All I could say is that it's a great game. I think it's better than Link to the Past.
yeah.
And honestly, I feel kind of bad for saying that, considering how highly viewed Link to the Past is. But I just think this one does a better job of letting you do what you want without having too many barriers to preventing you from doing it.
Hey, that's fair. That's fair.
My my 10th most played title is actually a little bit of a surprise, but it's the eShop.
Wow.
But I mean, to be fair, the eShop back then was a lot more, I guess, impressive than it is now.
Yeah,
Oh, were you gonna say something?
yeah, it's hard to say it, but I like at the time, obviously I was still relatively young and like I didn't have my own credit card or anything because I was in like middle school. So I didn't really buy a lot on the eShop because like, it was a hassle to get my parents to like pay for something on a virtual store. It was easier to go like spend allowance at a GameStop. And so I wish that I had gotten like, especially the virtual console for this system is amazing.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have gotten more into that at the time.
This and the Wii U are kind of just the staples of virtual console gaming because while the Wii and Wii U had more so, I guess, home console releases, this had like every sort of handheld game you could imagine. It had the Pokemon games up to GBA. It had the Mario platformers on the Game Boy. It even had Nintendo Entertainment System, and then for new 3DS owners, the Super Nintendo games as well.
Yeah,
But
totally.
this is kind of where I got introduced to Game Gear games, because
Yeah.
those were also an option to have, and they actually run quite good. If, in all honesty, I know you're a big Game Gear fan.
Yeah, I was gonna bring it up. I was gonna say, like, it's pretty much like, not only one of the only ways that you can play them in this day and age, but like pretty much the definitive way to play those games. Like, I think without Sonic Drift 2 being on the eShop, I don't think it would be a notable game whatsoever. And like games like all the Game Gear, like Sonic 1, 2, Triple Trouble, whatever. I know so many people who play them on this console, because it's like the Game Gear deteriorated so hard as a console. It's pretty much impossible to find a working one. And like, even if you do, the screen is bad. The controller isn't even like that comfortable to hold. So like, this is really just the way to play those games.
Speaking more about Virtual Console, if you received or bought a 3DS before the price drop, which actually happened later in the launch year, it went from $250 to, I think it was $175, I want to say, maybe $180, which is a really crazy price drop. If you ended up buying a console before then, you were part of the Ambassadors program. Now, though legal, or not legal, I want to say homebrewed versions of this console are really pricey, since they were consoles released within the first 4 months of the system. But being a part of the Ambassador program mean you got access to, I think it was 20 or 30 Virtual Console games, with some of them being GBA games, which were never officially released on the console.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really missed opportunity, because the Game Boy Advanced is one of those consoles. I know a lot of them got, or like some Game Boy Advance games got on the Wii U Virtual Console, I believe, afterwards. But I feel like it's really missed out, because this console is portable, and it's like, if you could play Game Boy Advance games on it, it would make so much sense.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good Game Boy Advance games out there too. It's one of those consoles I hold like really extremely high in regards. I think it's
like
one
me with the 3DS.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for the Game Boy Advance, and there's lots of games on there that I think absolutely should have gotten Virtual Console that I don't even think got on the Wii U Virtual Console. Like, I think they should have went all in on the Game Boy Advance if they were able to run it, because, you know, like, if it could run on this console, which clearly they proved it could.
Yeah.
They should have brought a lot of those really good games, because there was a lot of good ones. One
of the games they did include as a standalone release, although it was a DSiWare title, was Four Swords. Which was actually my first experience playing it. You could play it single player, or you could, find a friend and play it with them, but it released for free, I believe, for the first year of the console's release. Yeah. So given that I didn't have a credit card of my own, and my parents weren't really willing to buy a ton of games on the eShop, or at least full price games, because I could get them physically, Four Swords was one of the few titles I did buy from the eShop, and I spent a ton of time playing that.
Oh yeah.
And also the number of demos you could get. I remember that was my first experience playing an M-rated game. It was Resident Evil Revelations.
Oh wow. I remember playing the demo that I think they just gifted it to you like halfway through the console's library. I think it was like, I forget what it's called. I think it was like Rusty's Real Deal Baseball or whatever.
Right. I don't think it was gifted to you. I think
maybe
it was just a notification that popped up on Spot Pass that kind of encouraged you to get it. But that was a pretty neat concept for a game where you can like sort of buy expansions to the game, but you can haggle down the price, which is something really neat.
Yeah, I do remember like tooling around with it, but I didn't like get very far because I didn't ever really pay into anything for it. So it wasn't like something I played often, but I do remember it.
I think one of the two. I only really remember buying two actually priced games, or I guess applications from the from the eShop. One of them was Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters for the Game Boy, which was nothing like Kid Icarus Uprising, and I was a little disappointed. And the other one was Pokédex 3D Pro.
Yeah,
I don't know if you know about that, but it was just sort of like
I
a 3D
remember
model
seeing
viewer Pokédex of there was the Pokédex 3D, and then there was 3D Pro. The original just had Pokemon from Black and White, whereas Pro had everything up until I believe Gen 6.
Yeah, yeah,
I spent a ton of time just on that.
yeah, I remember that.
Kind of the same with the eShop. That like Nintendo doesn't do their eShops right anymore. They don't have background music or a little guy accompanying you on your download screen.
I forgot about that guy. Oh my gosh.
I just remember one of my, I guess, sort of bittersweet memories is just sitting on the screen watching the little drops fall into the game logo as you're downloading it, and having the little guy walk around and the music.
Yeah, I remember that. I thought it was pretty neat to like watch those things.
Just the fact that like the console had that sort of like made it really feel like it was like mine, I suppose. Like I had a bit of like independence, being able to go online and like browse the shop. I don't know if that makes any sense.
I kind of get what you're saying. Yeah. One piece of both Virtual Console and like 3DSware that I want to talk about, because I think it's absolutely fascinating, is the Game Boy Pokemon games and Pokebank.
Oh yeah.
Because you can't transfer Pokemon from Gen 2 to Gen 3.
No, you can't.
But you could, if you had like red, blue, and yellow on the Virtual Console and you had the Pokebank, you could transfer from those up to like the newest games. So for the first time, you could actually transfer from Gen 1 all the way like to the current generation. And I think that's so cool, even though it doesn't totally rectify like the issue. Like if you have actual physical cartridges you can't transfer, it's still really neat that they like did it for like there's any way to do it at all. I just think that's awesome.
One of the like biggest, I guess, like releases, or one of the biggest games on the eShop was Pokemon Crystal. It was kind of like they had the banner on top. It was always there just because of how much it was downloaded.
Yeah.
And I think it allowed you to actually do the Celebi event, which was not programmed into the game for the North American version on release back in 2000.
That's right. Yeah.
So that was just something really crazy that they thought to do. I think the only Pokemon game I had, or I might have been lying about the two pricey things I got from the eShop, because I do remember having Pokemon Yellow. I think it's something that I could still play today. I think other than maybe an emulator, it's the best way to play, because you have save states.
Yeah.
And it's just so compact and, portable as the 3DS is. It's just nice to be able to sit down and play whenever you have the time.
Yeah, one other Virtual Console game I want to point out is Earthbound. I think this was one of those games I was there for the launch of. Obviously not like the original Earthbound, but the virtual shop getting Earthbound, because at the time, I was introduced to Earthbound already. I had played through it and it had already become my favorite game. Like, I love Earthbound, I still do. And I remember like they announced it was coming to the Virtual Console for 3DS and Wii U, and it was like the most exciting thing, just because like we hadn't gotten anything Earthbound in like 20 years at that point.
Still really haven't.
Yeah, but it was so awesome to get that announcement, like, and have the game be accessible again for under $300. Like, I'm really glad that game was on the Virtual Console.
Since Earthbound's kind of like an RPG, the 3DS was just like an RPG machine. Like, there were so many. There were the Yokai Watch games. There were the Fire Emblem games, which are still some of the best in the entire series. There's Paper Mario, Mario and Luigi, the Pokemon Mystery Dungeon series. They just offered so many RPGs on this system, and I think it's works more so than home console RPGs, because like other games on the 3DS, you could just pick it up, save, and quit anytime you want. Like, you could do it in short bursts. You didn't have to dedicate a ton of time to playing it.
Yeah, it is nice though to RPGs like that are on portable consoles, because you can take them on a road trip and kill like a ton of time with them and make a lot of progress, which always feels good. So
Within the Pokemon games, I didn't have any of the RPGs. All I had were the demos for Fire Emblem Awakening and Mario and Luigi Dream Team. But even though they were just demos, I still have really fond memories playing them, because they were just really interesting. And by the time like Christmas rolled around, I'd forget I even played them, so I wouldn't.
Yeah, right.
Ask.
Yeah, I liked playing the Pokemon games on road trips. I don't think I had too many more RPGs on
you
it
said
outside of
ORAS
that.
was a big one for you.
Yes, it was huge for me.
I never had that one. This is sort of when I stopped playing and focused more on PC gaming. But I did recently get a copy of it, and it's been something I've been meaning to play. So if you want to talk a little more about your experience playing it, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so I had a copy of Sapphire as a kid, but I got stuck about halfway through it and never finished it. So like, it was cool because I already had the basis for like what Hoenn was originally. And it wasn't like when Heart Gold Soul Silver came out, I wasn't even that aware that Gold and Silver were like games beforehand,
Yeah,
but
like my only memory of Heart Gold Soul Silver is seeing like a display for it at Best Buy. Like, I don't remember anything about
I
it.
had those games too, but just like I hadn't played the original Gold Silver at that point, and like same with Fire Red, I hadn't played the original Red Blue at that point. So when those games came out, I didn't really know that they were like based off of something else really, but Sapphire or Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, I knew they like what they were based off of, and so it was really awesome to see the improvements. And I feel like they're like just straight up some of the best remakes of like a game in general. Because
definitely. I will say, kind of similar to other remakes since then, they didn't really take the Emerald content and integrate it as they should have. They just kind of did Sapphire and Ruby, and even with BDSP, they didn't include any of the Platinum content.
Yeah, totally.
I will say for ORAS, having the Fairy type Mega Evolutions and the physical special split is actually something that's really nice, although the games are kind of easy now that you have the first experience share.
Yeah, they're not tricky for sure. They're pretty easy, but like they're fun games, and like just the improvements that they made on everything, especially like not only graphically but like the route layouts. I know they're the same, but like the fact that they were able to upscale it into like almost a totally different art style kind of deal, but like keep the exact same feel of the region is so cool to me. And I really like those games. I'm a big fan of Gen 3 in general, but I think the remakes are awesome.
Coming out around that time was Majora's Mask 3D, and that was my last game with the console. I know a lot of people have mixed opinions on it, saying they made the game easier by just having the Bomber's Notebook be so accessible and saving whenever, and the Song of Double Time being able to take you to a specific time rather than just skipping, 12 hours or 24 hours ahead?
I don't remember at this point, but
I never ended up completing that game. I got stuck on the Great Bay Temple, and that was when I broke my purple 3DS, and I was just kind of, I lost all my games. They were in like a big 3DS carry kit somewhere in my house. I don't know if they're still around. I've been looking for them forever, but to me they're just kind of lost. But after I broke it, I just kind of gave up on the game. But I've played it and I've finished it now. And I think it's great. I think it was a great addition to the console, especially being somewhat late into its lifetime, 4 years in. I think it's something like, I think at the time with that and the Wii U, you could play every single Zelda game up until that point.
Yeah.
They just did a really good job of sort of bringing stuff over on Virtual Console or remakes and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think I really wish that I had gotten that one because I love Majora's Mask and I was a huge fan of Majora's Mask at the time and I wanted to get it for that reason, but since it was at the end of the console's lifespan, I wasn't like, I was just kind of done with the 3DS at that point. Like you were saying, I was moving more towards PC gaming than console, and so I kind of didn't really ever have the drive to like go buy a whole new console just to play Majora's Mask.
I only got it because I remember watching Chugga Conroy play it back in 2012, I believe, and I needed to see it after watching that playthrough for so long.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I do say that I definitely wanted the new 3DS, and the two big reasons were for Majora's Mask 3D, and then just to have the second circle pad, like for the C stick for Smash Bros 3DS.
Yeah, I know at least the second C stick works really well when you play Metal Gear Solid 3D.
Yeah.
Playing it without that, you kind of use the face buttons as a semi C stick, and it doesn't really work.
Mm-hmm.
But given that I just played the game, I actually think it's a really impressive port of PlayStation 2 game. I think it's PS2. It's a really impressive port, although it chugs at times. It's still really impressive they got it on the console, and copies now are going for like $120. But
oh wow,
it doesn't really add anything notable. I mean, there are a few pretty neat things. I remember in the original game there were these frogs scattered about, and you could shoot them. But in the 3DS version, they replaced the frogs with Yoshi.
Oh, weird.
And also during the scene where Snake loses his eye, if you have the 3D on, once he loses his eye, 3D gets automatically turned off since you need two eyes for depth perception.
Yeah.
It's a really small detail, but it's something so nice that I don't think anybody other than Hideo Kojima could have ever thought to do that.
Yeah, that's an awesome feature.
Are there any other sort of notable titles you want to talk about?
Like I said, Smash Bros for 3DS was like another really huge game for me with this console, because I feel like the whole thing of Smash Bros is like playing with another person.
Yeah.
And like you are like, I don't know, it like, since you could bring the console with you, it was a lot easier to play this game with somebody than like having to have somebody over to your house and
definitely.
like hook up the console and play with them. It was like much easier to just like go out and play with somebody, or like you'd have somebody who you like weren't really friends with, but they had a copy of the game and they'd be like, hey, you want to fight? And I think it got me more into like playing Smash Bros because I was actually playing it in the intended way. and yeah, I credit like a lot of, even though I barely ended up playing this one since I got the Wii U version pretty soon after, and like resorted to playing online a lot with that, I do think that 3DS Smash Bros is like one of the main reasons why I got into the series more. Even though I played a lot of Brawl and Melee as a kid, I still think 3DS got me into it more.
Smash 4 was kind of the title I didn't play as much as I should. Like I was saying before, I didn't have a lot of friends who had the game, so and playing single player got really boring really quick, so I pretty much moved on to the Wii U version that my neighbors had. Mm-hmm. So I know a lot of people got upset about the 3DS version because they say it took away from a lot of the, I guess, importance that the Wii U should have had, since it came out 4 months prior to the Wii U version.
Yeah, I know that at least like the thing that they say is like Ice Climbers were cut from the game because they couldn't get it to work on the 3DS version. Yeah. which I think is a little bit unfortunate, as I really like the Ice Climbers as a character, but like it wasn't the biggest drawback. I think, especially at the time, the game was very active with like players who really enjoyed the game.
I just think the novelty of having it handheld was kind of the most important thing about that game.
Yeah,
It's a decent fighting game, all things considered. It's just the fact that it's Smash on the go was kind of the real selling point of it.
yeah. I think Smash 4 walked so that Smash Ultimate could run really.
What are your thoughts on the console, sort of the eShop being shut down now?
I think it's pretty sad, like, especially there's a lot of, like, since it's one, like, between this and the Wii U being the last consoles with Virtual Console, I'm pretty sad about that because I did use the Virtual Console a bit on the Wii, like, and it introduced me to a lot of games and series that I wouldn't have really gotten into, like Star Fox and Ninja Gaiden and things like that. I think without the Virtual Console, I wouldn't have gotten, especially into retro games, as much. And so it's kind of, it's sad to me, I guess, to see those go. Mostly for Virtual Console. Just because I've never really delved too deep in the original like games that were on the eShop exclusives, but like I know there was a lot of good ones in there too.
Yeah, one of the biggest ones for me was this small game called Order Up. It was basically just like a cooking game, for lack of a better term. I think that might have been like $3 or something like that. Once again, me contradicting my statement that I only had like 3 games. But that was I might have just had the demo for it since I could only do one restaurant. But that was just a really neat little game that you could just sink a little bit of time into that Nintendo doesn't really do anymore.
Yeah, I think I think for those, like, I don't know, because it's not too bad really. Like, realistically, there's a lot of homebrew support for this console.
Yeah, which is something that I'm a part of myself. I've modded all 6 of my consoles so far. Or sorry, only 5 of them, I should say. I've kept my black 3DS vanilla.
I see.
It's really easy to do, and I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad because video game preservation is like, it's pretty important to me, and so like I'm glad people are going to be able to get these games without having to like buy a console that already had them or whatever. Like you can just load them up from a computer. So I think, like, realistically, it's okay that these services are going down, but I'm gonna miss a lot of the charm of like you said, watching like the little shop guy run around while you download a game is now just replaced by like waiting for your computer to load it onto an SD card, which it's not as fun.
That and like the music of the eShop, that's just something that it's something so simple that Nintendo could do now that just isn't there anymore. The Switch feels pretty lifeless compared to the Wii U and the 3DS because they both have just like those small little quality of life things that don't honestly need to be there, but it improves just kind of the memories that you have of the console.
Yeah, definitely. Like, there's a lot of really small features in the 3DS that I think just add to the character of the console. One of the things I don't think I've seen anybody talk about ever is the little game notes application where you could like draw.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you could like draw over the game and write in like notes and stuff, whatever. I used that so much, and like not necessarily for notes, but sometimes I just like open a game and like draw a character from it.
Yeah.
And so like that's like one of those features that just like they could add really easily, and it doesn't do a whole lot, but it's something I remember about the console. It's something that gives it character.
There are some things that are kind of held back by the limitations of it being a handheld. Nintendo Zone was a big one of those things.
Yeah.
I don't know if you really remember what Nintendo Zone was, because I never personally used it too much, but it was these little areas, like you could go to a Best Buy or a Nintendo store or other technology gaming stores like that, and you could just they were dedicated Nintendo zones, and you could just get a bunch of trailers and exclusive demos. I think you could even get exclusive Mii's on Street Pass. I remember there were some events where you could get like Reggie or Satoru Iwata or just kind of Nintendo executives like that, which is just something that's like that is literally the life of the console. Like it just provides so much without even really trying too hard.
Yeah, definitely. I vaguely remember seeing those, but I wasn't carrying my 3DS around with me enough on like a day-to-day basis that I really interacted with them much.
I guess sort of the last thing I want to talk about, although it's kind of small, it's another one of those things that just kind of breathes life into the console, the Nintendo videos. It was originally an app where you could get 4 videos a week. They would kind of go in rotation. You could watch them. It would be, sometimes it'd be trailers, sometimes it'd be little animations that like Nintendo released themselves. I remember the Kid Icarus animated series was a big one, as well as Kirby Right Back at Ya.
Oh yeah.
And I remember they had that, and then they shut down Nintendo Video and instead replaced it with individual apps that let you view these things. But kind of through that, like video player, the homebrew community has like allowed you to watch full-scale movies on your 3DS.
That's hilarious.
I know some of the big ones that came out this past year were the Batman and the Sonic 2 movie.
Oh wow, that's awesome. I didn't know about that.
But kind of with like the video viewing experience, you could also download YouTube and Netflix on your console. And I think those were my first, I think that was my first console or first like device I could watch those platforms on. Because I mean, you weren't really restricted by anything. You could really do anything you want for good or bad.
Yeah, I think on the topic of like watching things on the 3DS, you cannot talk about the 3DS without bringing up Dinosaur Office.
I know.
Like I think there's not too much to say about it since it's like a minute-long animation, but I think anybody who's like ever touched a 3DS remembers Dinosaur Office. Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to mention was the camera application that the 3DS had. Because it was neat, because you could really, first of all, from the home screen, you could just press the shoulder buttons and like immediately open up the camera.
Yeah,
That's pretty much a predecessor now to how like you open like your phone and just like swipe left and the camera's right there so that you can take a picture fast. I feel like,
I don't want to say Nintendo innovated touchscreens and camera features, but it feels like they did with the DS coming out, and then the 3DS really innovating the camera access.
Yes, and then also the 3DS having like the stop motion feature in the camera. Right. I think that definitely was one of those things that kind of helped me like gain a creative process in my youth, I guess, because like it got me into like video creation and like taught me about like being patient, I guess, with like making a video or whatever. And like, you know, obviously I'm not making stop motions now. I'm making like YouTube videos about like random video games or whatever, but I do think like kind of I do owe some credit to like both the stop motion in the 3DS camera and then also flip note on the DSi. Those two things kind of started me there in like the creative process.
I used to be confused by why the 3DS had 2 exterior cameras, but after I was older and looked into it more, it was actually to take 3D pictures, which I thought was which is something that you don't ever see anymore.
Oh yeah,
it's just such a neat novelty, and being able to edit your pictures with like by drawing on it or putting it there. It's just something that you don't see anymore.
Yeah, it was really fun. I was definitely a little disappointed to find out the Switch didn't have a camera on it, because
although it would be hard as like a semi-home, transport console.
But yeah, between the DSi and the 3DS, I definitely I messed with the cameras on those systems so much.
I think I just messed around with every single base app on the system. I would make a ton of me's. I would always look through my activity log, which is something that Switch still just needs, like being able to see how much time you've put into each game. It's just something that
I know you can see that on the Switch from your like profile.
yeah, but you can't. It's only I think your 20 most recent games rather than like everything you've ever played and like a timeline of when you've played it. Because I could, if I still had my original console, I could look back and see like the first day I got the system, which is something that's, I mean, it's so easy to do as well. Because now to adequately document how many hours you've put into a game, you have to like either use the timestamp on your save file for whatever game it is, or you just have to guess based off of the Switch profile, which is, I mean, it's not as fun as going through the activity log and just kind of seeing the evolution of what games you've begun to play as time went on.
Yeah, totally.
But if that's everything you have to say, I don't have anything else to say.
Yeah, I think I covered everything I had to talk about, really.
Well, since the 3DS is ending, or I guess being shut down in 2 months, for anybody watching this video, if you want to, I guess, sort of be a part of the community, all you can really do is get a 3DS and just kind of use it for as long as you can within those 2 months. It's something really sad that's happening, and that's kind of why I wanted to make this video.
Yeah.
And for anybody interested in my friend S2's channel, it will be the first thing in the description. He does some amazing content if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. I speedrun video games. I make very mixed variety of content on my YouTube, which hopefully I'll have some more videos out for soon. And yeah, I think I do music on like my second channel, and my third channel is speedrunning uploads, so I've got lots of stuff.
If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Links to my Twitter, Twitch, and to S2's channel will all be in the description, and I will be sure to have more content like this coming out soon.